All right, so welcome to another deep dive. And today we're tackling something pretty huge, the very, very beginnings of English drama. And the really cool thing is, this whole exploration is sparked by something you sent in, Dr. Jaswant Rathod's work on this topic.
Oh, fantastic. His insights are always a great place to start.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to try and make this like a crash course, right? Like, if you want to understand the DNA of dramatic storytelling, where it all began, what those first plays were all about, what shaped them, this is the place to be. And get this, we might even uncover some surprises along the way, like how vital the church was in using plays to teach people way back when, because most folks couldn't even read.
Oh, that's right. The church was a real pioneer in that sense.
Definitely. Okay, so ready to dive in.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So to kick things off, where do we even begin with something as massive as English drama? I mean, it feels like trying to find the source of a river.
Well, Dr. Rathod gives us a great starting point. He points us towards 8th century Saxon England.
Okay, 8th century Saxon England. So paint a picture for us. What's the scene?
Okay, picture this. England's not this unified country we know today, right? It's this collection of separate kingdoms. And here's the thing. Most people can't read.
Right. Literacy wasn't exactly widespread back then.
Oh, not at all. And books. Well, printed books are basically non-existent.
It's
So how do you spread important ideas, right? How do you teach people?
I'm guessing that's where the church comes in.
Exactly. The church steps in and they realize, hey, we can use performance. I mean, they see the power of storytelling, of bringing those biblical narratives to life, especially since people can't read them themselves.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's like you've got these powerful stories from the Bible, but if most people can't decipher the written word, how do you make them resonate?
Right. So they start using dramatization. Think basic reenactments of big biblical moments. The Israelites escaping Egypt, discovering Jesus' empty tomb. Really impactful stuff to witness.
Can you imagine seeing those moments play out before your eyes? I mean, talk about a powerful way to connect with those stories.
Exactly. And Dr. Rathod emphasizes that these early performances, they would have been so striking. Remember, it's a largely visual and oral culture. So actually seeing these stories unfold, way more engaging than just hearing someone recite them, probably sparked a much deeper emotional connection to those religious teachings.
Yeah, I bet. It's like you're not just hearing about it, you're experiencing it. And what about the staging? Were we talking elaborate sets or?
Oh, no, not at all. Think simple, really simple. Dr. Rathod describes it as rudimentary platforms, maybe some enclosed spaces, and very, very minimal sets.
Right.
The focus was purely on getting the story across, a very bare bones, primal form of theater, you could say.
So almost like a blank canvas allowing the story to really pop.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. These early plays, they didn't stage as biblical retellings, did they?
So they evolved into something else.
Yes. From these dramatized Bible stories, we see the emergence of morality plays.
Morality plays. Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for us.
Well, think of them as original works, not just straight adaptations of scripture.
Oh, so someone's actually composing these.
Exactly. Often monks, religious figures, would write them to really hammer home those moral and religious lessons.
So there's a very clear aim here, right? It's not just about entertainment. It's about instruction.
Absolutely. It's a continuation of that impulse we talked about earlier, using drama to educate and guide people's understanding of right and wrong.
Makes sense. Now, when I hear morality play, I can't help but picture those, like, over-the-top characters. Am I on the right track?
Oh, you're absolutely on the right track. Dr. Rathod highlights this fascinating aspect of morality plays. The characters, forget those complex individuals we're used to seeing today. These characters are actually personifications of abstract quality.
Wow, so like literally embodying concepts.
Exactly. Dr. Rathod gives us some really vivid examples. Innocence, often depicted as a young girl dressed all in white. And then you have sin, or vice, often a kind of menacing figure in black.
Oh, wow, that's so visual. You can almost see those figures right in front of you. Innocence in white, vice in black. It's using allegory, right? Representing those abstract ideas through people and figures to drive home a deeper meaning.
Exactly. Allegory. It's brilliant when you think about it. It makes those intangible concepts like innocence and sin super tangible and relatable for the audience.
Yeah, so instead of some complex theological explanation, you've got these characters, these embodiments of good and evil clashing right there on stage.
Exactly. Seeing vice tempting innocence, that's a powerful way to illustrate those internal struggles, those moral choices we all face.
And Dr. Rather mentions one play in particular from this period, right?
Yeah.
Every Man.
Yes. apparently hugely popular, performed in places like Coventry and Chester, like 1,000 years ago. Just think about that. A story resonating with audiences for centuries.
Wow. Speaks volumes about the power of those early dramatic forms.
Absolutely. And Dr. Rathod stresses an important distinction. Miracle plays, those focused on biblical stories, versus morality plays, or moralities, which use these symbolic characters to teach moral lessons.
So you can see a sort of evolution here, can't you?
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, he mentions this gradual shift towards characters becoming more individualized, more like the people in the audience.
Ah, so those baby steps towards the nuanced characters we encounter later on in theater.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all about preaching morals and lessons, was it?
No, not at all. I mean, let's be honest. There's another fundamental human element at play here. Pure entertainment. People wanted to be amused. They wanted to experience wonder.
Right, it wasn't just about learning something. They also craved something that sparked joy, something captivating.
Exactly. Dr. Rathod's right on point here. That natural human desire for amusement and wonder, another huge driving force in how drama developed.
So it's like, we've got this drive to teach, but alongside that, there's this growing appetite for something that just plain entertains.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And guess what? This is where another big influence enters the stage. The ancient Greeks.
Ah, yes, the OG storytellers.
You got it. Think Aeschylus, Seneca, those heavy-hitting tragedians. Then you've got the comic geniuses like Aristophanes and Plautus.
I mean, those are some serious literary heavyweights.
No kidding. And get this. Even back then, these were ancient texts, right? But scholars revered them, saw them as the ultimate models for dramatic art.
So what was it about these Greek plays that made them such a gold standard, even centuries later? Was it the themes they tackled, or was it something about the way they were structured?
You're asking the right questions. That rediscovery of classical forms brought this sense of, like, established artistic excellence. The Greeks, they dealt with these huge human themes, fate, justice, ambition, all in this super structured, often poetic language. They were models of sophisticated storytelling, character development that just blew the simpler early English dramas out of the water. And with this renewed interest in the Greeks came, drum roll please, the theories of Aristotle.
Aristotle, the OG master of dramatic theory. I've heard about this.
Oh, yeah. He actually codified what he considered the fundamental building blocks of drama, the Unities.
Okay, the Unities. Break it down for us. What are we talking about here?
So Dr. Rathod lays out these three unities really clearly. First, you've got unity of time. Ideally, the whole action of the play should happen within a single day.
Keep it tight. Keep it focused. Got it.
Exactly. Then there's unity of place. The action should all go down in one location, no jumping around.
Okay, so one day, one place. What's the third unity?
Unity of action. This means the play should have one main plot, no big side stories to distract us.
Keep it streamlined. So why was Aristotle so fixated on these rules? What was his thinking?
Basically, he believed that these unities made for a more focused and powerful experience for the audience. He argued that without these constraints, a play could become this jumbled mess of events, lacking unity and a natural flow.
It's like he was advocating for this tightly woven, interconnected narrative that felt both inevitable and satisfyingly complete.
Exactly. And he even went further, outlining this five-part structure for how a play should unfold. Think of it as the blueprint for dramatic storytelling.
Ooh, a blueprint. Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
All right, so it starts with the exposition. This sets up the initial situation, introduces those triggers that'll set the whole story in motion.
Okay, so we're setting the scene, laying the groundwork. What's next?
Then comes the rising action. Things start to heat up, events build and intensify, conflicts emerge, tensions rise, all that good stuff.
Oh yeah, the drama's starting to simmer.
Exactly. And this all leads to the crisis, or climax, that peak of tension, the point of no return. And this crisis directly stems from the initial situation we established in the exposition.
Oh, I see. So it's like a cause and effect chain, right?
Mhm.
The exposition sets up those dominoes, and the rising action tips the first one over, leading to that big dramatic climax.
Exactly. Then we have the falling action where the intensity starts to ease off. We see the fallout from that climax, the consequences start to unfold.
Okay, things are starting to settle. So what's the final stage?
The catastrophe. This is the resolution, the grand finale where everything wraps up.
The curtain closes,
Yeah,
and we're left to ponder the implications.
exactly. And what's fascinating is the impact of this five-part structure. Dr. Rathod mentions that later playwrights started dividing their plays into 5 acts, influenced by Aristotle's divisions.
5 acts.
Yeah.
Ah, so that's where that structure comes from.
Yep. Though, fun fact, Shakespeare himself, he didn't originally structure his plays that way.
Really?
Yeah, those five-act divisions were added later by editors. His plays were actually written to flow continuously.
Huh. That's interesting. It kind of reminds me of the contrast Dr. Rathod draws between Aristotle's focus on structure and Shakespeare's approach. It seems like Shakespeare was way more interested in creating these super believable, multi-layered characters who drive the story through their actions and motivations.
Absolutely. For Shakespeare, strict adherence to those Greek rules, it wasn't his top priority.
So what was driving him?
Well, as Dr. Rathod suggests, it was about captivating his audience, keeping them engaged. He had his own idea of what made good drama work, his own internal sense of unity and coherence.
And let's be real, he wasn't afraid to bend or even break the rules, right?
Mhm.
I mean, Dr. Rathod brings up some great examples of Shakespeare plays that just toss those Greek unities out the window. Take Macbeth.
Oh yeah, Macbeth.
Hmm.
Action spans years, jumps between locations.
But you still get that sense of continuity, that feeling of things moving forward, don't you?
You do. And that's a testament to Shakespeare's mastery as a dramatist.
Totally. He had this amazing ability to manipulate our perception of time and space through his language and pacing.
And don't forget about the staging back then. Pretty basic, right?
Yeah.
The same bare stage served for all scenes. Might have actually contributed to that fluidity, even though everyone knew the action was supposedly happening in different places.
You know, that's a really interesting point. Almost like those limitations forced a certain kind of creativity, right?
Perhaps. So to kind of wrap up our deep dive here,
Okay, let's bring it all together.
we've journeyed from the very roots of English drama. We saw how the church, faced with widespread illiteracy, used plays to bring those biblical narratives to life. Then we saw how morality plays emerged, using those symbolic characters to teach moral lessons.
And we can't forget the huge impact of Greek drama,
Yeah.
especially Aristotle and his theories about structure.
Totally. And finally, we saw how Shakespeare, though aware of those classical ideas, ultimately carved his own path, emphasizing character development and audience engagement above all else.
A true innovator. And that journey from those early instructive plays to those intricate character-driven stories, it really laid the groundwork for everything that came after in English theater.
It really does. It highlights this fascinating interplay between the impulse to teach, that basic human need to be entertained, and that constant push for creative innovation.
So as we wrap up here, it leaves us with a final thought, something to chew on. We've seen how drama evolved from these purely educational plays to those that dive deep into human nature, prioritizing entertainment. So how do you see these early principles, those seeds planted way back when, how do they echo in the stories we experience today, even in forms that are totally different from traditional plays?
It's a question worth pondering.
Right. And what about those ideas of Aristotle, his thoughts about narrative structure? Even if we don't strictly follow them, are there elements that still make for a story that really grabs us, that stays with us?
That's for you to decide.
Exactly. It's something to keep in mind as you go out and experience all those stories out there.
I think that's a fantastic note to end on.
All right. Until next time, happy deep diving, everyone.
Take care.